Hey guys, it's Chiho, and welcome back to Grow with Chiho. And today for let's.
Wait, hold up. Sorry, I was leaning out of camera when you started.
Okay,
Yeah, we're good.
just gonna add that in. The cool thing about this is right now, in this video, we have a net worth of $4 million. You know, and if you take me out, we still have a net worth of about $4 million, okay? Yeah. Seth right here has a couple 7-figure businesses, and we're gonna, discuss kind of, how he got there at such a young age. Seth, how old are you?
I'm 32, actually.
He's 32, even though he looks like he's 21 at best, okay? Over a game of blackjack, okay? So, Seth, tell us about your businesses.
Yeah, so while you deal the cards, I'll tell you a little bit how we got started and a little bit about what we do. We started off primarily as an internet marketing and web development company, probably around 8 years ago at this time. And we picked up some clients, and I did the development design side. I have a business partner that did the marketing side. And together we did a client agency, a lot like what you're doing right now. We got to about 16 clients, and then we realized that we didn't quite have enough capacity yet to completely fill out our schedule. So, and at the same time, we weren't pulling in enough per client to really make it worth it for us to quit our day jobs at the time. So we decided we would start our own side projects in order to define our portfolio and push up that per person average up to the $10,000 a month threshold that we were really trying to achieve.
Yeah.
The issue was, though, we started to create these side projects, and we made more than a dozen of them. And they ended up getting so large that we ended up having to fire all of our clients, and now we just own and operate those assets today. Within those, we have 3 that remain after 8 years. One of them is based on an information site focused purely off of like affiliate sales, ad revenue and things like that in the automotive space. It gets about 4.5 million people a year visit this website, and it ranks for over 80,000 keywords. Then on another website, we have an e-commerce brand where we drop ship products that we import from China, which are gaming furniture, and we also have desks that we end up making in Wisconsin as well.
Okay.
Then the third company is a hosting company. It's a game server hosting company focused on Minecraft specifically. We're at this point one of the oldest and largest Minecraft server hosting companies at about 8 years old, with over 27,000 clients in a little over 170 countries.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I gotta ask, okay? How old were you when you kind of made your hits the first, one of your companies hits that 7-figure mark, okay? How old were you?
Yes. So I actually have some symbols in my house that I use to mark this timing. Everything that we do is digital, so it's really fun to have physical representations of what we're doing, and so we can have kind of benchmarks or references to go back to and look at for our success. The first company to hit a 7-figure mark was my hosting company.
Okay.
And actually, to be honest, it didn't actually hit the 7-figure mark. It got within about 2% of that. It got within just a couple $1,000s away from $1 million. And exactly, that's what I said. We rounded up just a little bit. Yeah, if you look at it with a squint. So it got close enough to where we would call it a 7-figure company, give or take, taxes and things like that. So that one ended up hitting the 7-figure mark in year 2 or 3. Okay. And the way we ended up marking it in these benchmarks that I'm telling you about, actually the company is Minecraft. And so in Minecraft, you have items that you create in Minecraft, and the things that you make are out of different picking swords. And I have a iron sword, which I ended up picking up when we got our first time that we were making $1,000 a day. And then I got another sword when we ended up getting our a net worth. I switched the metric a little bit, and when we had a net worth, that is if we would take our monthly revenue and multiply it out, we would make $100,000 a year. Yeah. And then I got my third, and that I got a gold sword for. And then the third one is when we got to $1 million net worth.
Diamond sword.
I got a diamond sword.
Yeah, exactly. Diamond sword.
So I have them all lined up on my wall over my desk, and it looks pretty cool.
What are you going to do for 10 million?
I don't even know. I mean, if we could hit 10 million, I'll probably just make my own sword at that point, like a bedrock sword that doesn't even exist in game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Go for it. Well, how old were you when that happened?
Yeah, so if you do the math, 2 to 3 years into an 8-figure company, that would put me at 27.
27. Okay, I'm 26. I have like 1 year to be relatively competitive, in this. I like to compete with my friends. That's kind of, the whole entrepreneurship, spirit. You get inspired by each other and kind of, set big goals. Right now, what would you say? Like you were 26. You quit your day job when you're like 24, 25.
Yeah.
Right. And being an entrepreneur is hard, it's a lot of risk, What kind of, got you through it, Why did you take that risk? And
yeah, so really I never really saw myself doing anything else. When I was young, I was always that kid that had trouble following rules.
Yeah.
I would always excel in what I did, but I had trouble following directions that seemed to me as being blinded direction.
Yeah.
And every time I worked myself through college, I worked at a restaurant, Fleming's, for several years.
Yeah.
And every time I would be at a different location like that, I would always end up not judging, but double guessing or second guessing the management and kind of like the best practices and things to do, kind of analyzing what it is they're actually doing on a day-to-day basis and trying to figure out if I could do it myself.
Yeah.
And so ultimately I ended up realizing that I could operate a restaurant if I chose after about 7 years of doing this. And that kind of led me a little bit of a confidence to realize that I can run a business. I mean, Fleming's is a nice steakhouse. They have a really decent return. And I ended up realizing that it wasn't necessarily the scale or the company that was the issue. It was just like the core management of like how to do accounting, how to manage people, how to do scheduling, things like that. It's all doable. I ended up going to school for a finance degree, and I did not like it. So I ended up teaching myself how to code. And I instantly went into freelance straight out of college.
Okay.
I was working in a restaurant and doing freelance online using the information that I learned being self-taught. And after about 6 months of doing this, actually, about 18 months of studying, I ended up quitting my job at the restaurant. I spent 6 solid months just hardcore studying code, and I'm getting my first job as a front-end web developer. I had learned about 6 different languages at this point. I only had to use a couple of them. I ended up finding a job off of Craigslist from a guy that was just down the street. He actually ended up living next door to my brother at the time.
Oh,
and
that's interesting.
He had like an illegal operation out of his house because he owned 2 houses next to each other. And we would just all park in the front yard, and like people would come by and be like, "There's too many cars here. Is there a business?" And so I was the 5th person of that company. And with 18 months, we had grown it to 15 people. I started off as a front-end web developer, and I ended up becoming their lead graphic designer, their lead front-end developer, and their lead marketer, to the point where I had convinced the company. It was a startup at this time. Our investor was a billionaire out of South Florida named Baron Vernon Ball, and we ended up convincing them to use my freelance company for marketing purposes.
Okay.
So I was double dipping. Every time I would get a new client for the one company that I was front-end developer for, they would also sign on to my marketing company, and then I would get paid on a recurring subscription on that one as well.
Okay.
So this went on for about 6 months until we were at a convention, and they realized that if I were to get hit by a car, the company would be in a lot of trouble. It's the key man issue.
Yeah.
So they ended up I ended up going up to California, which was a huge deal for me because I had a girlfriend at the time that kept telling me to come to California, where she had worked with Lady Gaga and some people. And I was like, no, I refuse to go until I'm a paid developer. I want to go as a paid tech professional. And so sure enough, a year later, my boss ends up bringing me out to California. He pays me to go out there. We went to some conference. And while I was there, the other team that was left behind got a little bit salty about it. Yeah. And so they ended up pulling back all of my responsibilities. And so when I got back and the owner of the company dropped the ball on a project that I'd got a multi-million-dollar contract we had gotten in San Francisco, I started asking questions saying, hey, I need more control over this. You're pulling back responsibilities. You're dropping contracts. I need to make sure this is working appropriately if I'm going to keep giving my time. Because at the moment, I wasn't even an employee. I was just a contractor working 35 hours a week.
Yeah.
And when I ended up contesting them about what was going on, they decided they would terminate my contract the day before Christmas.
Oof. That's a rough one. I actually had my last year birthday. I had someone terminate the contract the day before my birthday. It was not good.
Yeah, it leaves you a little salty. It leaves you a little bitter. Yeah.
A little salty.
Yeah, you want
to be a lot salty.
Yeah, it makes you want to prove something after it. You're like,
like a real chip on your shoulder.
Oh yeah, like you never want that to happen ever again. Yeah. So that was December of 2013, and we had started the hosting company only 2 months prior. That December, my hosting company made its first $1,000.
Okay.
That's where I got the sword.
The sword, yeah.
And I decided I wasn't going to go back. I wasn't going to get another job. I was going to make it work somehow. So I never went back. And it's been almost 8 years now, 7-8 years, and I still have been full-time self-employed ever since.
Now, what's interesting about this the whole time that story, you were in your early 20s.
Yeah. So at this time, I would have been about 24, 25.
So what's like the number one advice you would give someone, right, who's personally, I like to say, if you have to ask if you want to be an entrepreneur, the answer is no. Because, like for me, I wouldn't see myself, doing anything else, right? It's not an option. It's kind of just who I see myself as a person, right? But for you, what kind of advice would you give someone who, they are in their 20s, right? They are thinking about building like a business for themselves. What advice would you give them?
Well, my first advice would be to really look inside. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. There's a lot of ways to make really good money not being an entrepreneur. Like Gary Vee likes to say, like the number 5 at Facebook made a lot more money than you're going to make as an entrepreneur, most likely.
Yeah.
Like the opportunity is there, but not everyone is necessarily built for that. And there's a lot of little things that go into that. There's this thing called incidental entrepreneurship, where people get pushed into entrepreneurship by just situation. And it's really, really important to be aware of when that's happening to you and when you're actually inclined to be that type of person. So make sure that your environment is right, your mindset is right, and that you know that this isn't just something you want to do now because, screw that guy. But it's something that you've always wanted to be. And there's like little markers for it. Like, did you have a lemonade stand when you were little? Did you ever go door to door to sell cookies or magazines? Were you ever the person who would be helping at the bake sale? Did you ever like to help collect money for various causes for charities?
Yeah.
Were you the type of person that was always talking and marketing to things that people didn't even want to hear about, but you knew there was value there? Were you the person who was always trying to not necessarily break the rules, but was somewhat questioning the rules? And were you also excelling in everything while not necessarily everything, but were you capable of excelling while not necessarily applying because you didn't see the value of applying it in that scenario?
Yeah.
There's this type of disenfranchisement that people have when they're younger. They don't know how to apply themselves because they have surplus capacity.
Yeah.
If you find yourself as one of those people, it's very likely that you could be an entrepreneur type personality. But there's a lot of education, a lot of studying, a lot of temperance.
Also, I feel I think it's really a personality type because a lot of people just can't handle the high variation involved in entrepreneurship, right? I'm sure over your 8 years, you got lost a contract day before Christmas. Okay, I'm sure you've had a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of variation going on, right? So what would you say has helped you kind of just wither through all that variance?
Yes, I mean you're saying something very true in that there's a lot of highs and a lot of lows. The elasticity of your emotions in entrepreneurship is extreme. So it took me a couple years actually to get used to this. It's really difficult financially. It wasn't until I became debt free and able to kind of wipe the slate clean a little bit off of what got me into this. When I started, I was $25,000 in debt, student loans, the whole works, credit card bills. My ex-girlfriend stole a lot of money from me. I was not in a surplus. And so when you add that variability of income and consistency, like you don't know when your dollar's coming in next. I was literally going to Airbnbs. I was renting out my place for every 14 days on Airbnb, and I would know that if I would get 10 to 14 days, I could cover all my bills for the entire month. So I would go sleep on people's couches for a couple days, and I would bounce around like that for 6 months to a year in order to actually make the initial month work. I had to really hustle for it, and I wasn't sure I was going to pay my bills every single month. And so you go from that mindset to something where you're now looking, a couple years out into the future, and then even so, once you do have that couple years out into the future mindset, and you have a foundation underneath of you, that foundation can wither away very quickly. Even right now, I'm underneath 25% tariffs from the trade war, and so that has basically killed one of my companies. We're still going through selling inventory and things like that. We will still make a profit this year, but the concept of being able to grow and then not being able to grow is always changing, even when you're in success. So it's about having multiple stokes in the fire. It's about being able to understand the time sensitivity of it all. Money is seasonal. You have to be aware that sometimes you'll be in it and sometimes you'll be outside of it. And for me, it was knowing this cycle would continue and having the confidence within myself that I would be able to continue it. Within that cycle, though, there are stress relievers. You learn to work out, you learn to meditate, you learn to journal, you learn to listen to soothing music in the middle of the day when people are sending the angry emails. Like, there are things you do to kind of compensate for the inevitable downsides of it. You eventually have to fire people. You eventually have to cut client work and sponsorships. You eventually have to tell your factory that, we can't order another thing this month.
Yeah.
And like these types of scenarios really eat into you. But understanding that it is a seasonal cycle and the foundation of what you've built will last, assuming that you're not too invested in any one path. So diversification combined with experience, with a little bit of soothing techniques, is what allowed me to get through it.
The soothing techniques, So let's go a little fun here, okay? You have your Minecraft hosting service, right? What's the most interesting thing about that? And what about owning a Minecraft hosting business do a lot of people wouldn't consider? I know that's a hard question.
No, it's fine. No, it's... So one of the most surprising things about it is just the numbers of it. You're kind of a bit of a nerd in the number side of it. You understand computers and RAM and how those things work. The average PC has anywhere between 4 to 20 gigabytes of RAM. This is, an average PC laptop may have 4 gigabytes, 6 gigabytes of RAM. You're doing a dev PC, you're probably looking at 24 gigabytes of RAM. If you're doing 3D modeling, you're probably in 32 or something like that. We have 30 terabytes of RAM, which is kind of a cool number. We're in 180 countries, which kind of interesting to be able to provide customer service to that many different people.
Yeah.
We're able to see that the people that are creating a lot of the value are actually extremely young, and in a lot of times extremely naive. They don't necessarily have the rounded skill sets that you imagine they would have. One of the surprising things is in Minecraft, the highest traffic, the highest shared, the highest used objects is content. It's creative content, whether it's the skins you use, the maps you use, the plugins that you use, it's the content that's being created in the community.
Yeah.
Out of this, there are these schools that collect together and they kind of combine their stuff and they become independent packs, independent communities.
Yeah.
One of the largest in the world who had downloads that rivaled the Super Bowl, 40, 50 million plus downloads. They were ended up owned, created, and operated by some young dude who he sells used cars. He didn't do it on purpose. He was just a super fan, lost in a forum. Somebody needed something. He did the research and figured he could do it. Spent a couple weeks with a friend setting it up, and it just happened to work. A couple years faded away. He lost interest, and it disappeared. There's these huge megalithic structures in the community that are set up by people that are just kind of part-time interest, hobbyists of sorts.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of interesting to see how much of this, it's the world's most popular game, and it has such traffic that many people are jealous of this type of interaction that they have. But in the end of the day, it's kind of just, it's made part-time. That's really weird.
You guys should really send PewDiePie a paycheck in the mail.
We tried, actually.
he resurrected Minecraft from the grave.
Oh man, the PewDiePie effect is real. So last year, 1.15 came out? 1.14 came out, and we ended up getting some extra combat, Village and Pillage. And it ended up adding a new dynamic to the game, which brought PewDiePie back to the game, because his very first game streamed was Minecraft.
Yeah.
And so when he started streaming it, then all the other streamers started streaming it, and there was a 4-fold increase in traffic on Minecraft for almost 10 months. My company itself grew 500%.
You owe that man a paycheck.
Oh yeah, I owe him a lot. So
thank you, Chad.
So you're not even wrong. So we actually contacted him, and you can't contact Felix himself. You get his agent.
Yeah.
And she was very lovely. We talked to her, and she was all like, "I don't understand why people in Minecraft can't pay his fees. It's a normal fee." And she's talking she's thinking like Ford and BMW and Pepsi and people that have real cash. Yeah. And so the minimum he'll do to talk with you is $250,000 a year. which,
Okay.
you know.
That's a lot of money.
So if you're talking.
I can afford that.
Yeah, right, yeah. So if you're talking $20,000 a month minimum just to open the door, you really need to convert a lot for that. And when you're talking growth rates of servers, it ends up becoming a kind of a numbers issue because his traffic is so big that even a small conversion of that traffic will have such a growth rate that we can't buy hardware fast enough to sell it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So even if we could get, and we had the option, we can get him for 20 grand. It was within our budget. But the issue is if that 20 grand would have gotten us so much growth, we would have broken our company.
Yeah.
So he's literally too big. And Tyler Blevins, Ninja, has the same issue.
Yeah.
Except, well, not in the same issue, but he ends up having to discount the value of his viewers comparatively to others because people just can't afford it.
Yeah.
A lot of people will pay $1 per concurrent viewer. Tyler has to do like 30 cents.
Yeah, because he has just so many.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to go for whales you can actually catch. You know, like you're really in a big whale, but you can have a small boat.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a small boat.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Well, okay, I gotta thank you for coming on today. Actually, hopefully, you guys, if you found any of that remotely useful or interesting, make sure smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, right? But before we go, we gotta finish this game of blackjack. This is probably the smallest game of.
Yeah.
So do you want me to hit?
What do you mean hit? You have 3 cards, I have 2.
Yeah, I already hit myself.
You don't hit in blackjack, to you, until you have cards out to compare against.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we ready?
Yeah, so let's do 1, 2. Okay.
Okay.
You don't need that. Do you want that?
No.
I want that.
What do you want?
Well, according to the card, I need to hit.
According to the card. You're like, this has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, I broke.
Bust.
I busted.
And I win.
I think that's
I'm the real winner here, okay? And again, don't forget to subscribe for more videos. Again, we're going to be going on with weekly videos, and I'm going to try to get some more of my interesting fellow entrepreneurs on here, so you get to hear other point of views, right? And yeah, I'll see you guys next week.